Welcome to Drilling Down, the Alabama Dentistry Podcast. Today's guest is Dr. Leigh Kent. Dr. Kent is a periodontist practicing here in Birmingham, Alabama. She joins Dr. Ron Beasley for a conversation about the challenges and opportunities facing dentists across our state.
Leigh, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm actually so excited that you're doing this. And we need different ways to communicate together and different avenues. So I'm super thrilled that you're doing this and that you're getting this off the ground.
Well, maybe outside of my parents and maybe your staff, maybe we'll have more than 8 people listen to it.
Hey, it's a start. It's always a start, right?
Right. Okay. So tell me, we're going to have some fun too. I've got some fun questions for you.
Boy.
So tell me about you. You grew up in South Carolina, right?
Actually, my mom's from South Carolina, my dad was from Alabama, but I grew up mostly in Virginia, in Northern Virginia. Moved around a little bit, went to Kansas for a few years. My dad worked for FAA, and then ended up, so I went to Medical College of Virginia for dental school, and then ended up down, I wanted to be warm, and ended up in Alabama. I love the weather here. It's great. And so now I've been here for, you know, 35 plus years and love it.
So where'd you go to undergrad school?
So I went to University of Georgia for 2 years, and then Virginia gave me a scholarship to come back in state that I really couldn't turn down. So ended up after college at Medical College of Virginia, which I think now they've renamed it VCU, but I'm old enough that it was called MCV at the time. And then came down here and it was a dual program at the time where after dental school you did a PhD in one area while you're doing your residency program. Um, it's a great program. It was a lot. I had 2 of my 4 kids during that time, and my second child was born 2 weeks before I defended my PhD. And yeah, so yeah, there was a little crying after that was over. I was happy to get past that. And then ended up in private practice and have been here now for golly, it started in 97, so it'll be almost 30 years. I feel like I've been practicing maybe 10, and here 30 have gone by, and I still love it.
So I had no idea you went to Georgia for 2 years.
I did. Yeah. Loved it. Go Dogs.
So, yeah, you did the Masters of Perio and a PhD, correct?
It was just a certificate in perio while you're doing a PhD, and mine was microbiology.
I got you. And what was the reason you chose that? Was there some
So,
future
yeah,
plan?
at the time, I really thought I wanted to do research and wanted to teach. And then I ended up married, and my husband was an attorney. And so moving really wasn't an option. There weren't a lot of positions at that point. There weren't any at UAB. And so ended up in private practice and, kind of one of those things that all worked out. I still love UAB and hope to get back there and, help out a little bit on Fridays, in the next couple of years.
Good for you. So you did undergrad, you finished undergrad at Virginia, did dental school there, that came here, did perio, and then got out. And did you immediately go into private practice?
Did. Yep. Yep. Right
Just
after
hung a
finished.
shingle? That was it?
Well, so I bought a practice from, and he was about a 70-year-old, really tall male. And here I'm 5'3" and a half. I count halves, and female, and a little younger than I am now, 30 years. And it ended up being we worked together for about a year, and I had 2 more kids after private practice. So I had 2 of my 4 while I was doing my residency and then 2 of the 4 after. But we got along so well. I was supposed to buy his practice in a year, get out. He was going to retire. That I ended up asking if he would stay an extra year and work for me. And he did. That was Dr. Jerry Dickerson.
Dickerson, that's right.
Yeah. He ended up moving down to the beach, and he came back a couple times to help me out and gave me a week or so off when I'd have another kid.
Oh, that's great. So, you have a daughter who is a recent graduate?
I do. So I have girl, girl, boy, girl. My second child is the one who's now an Air Force dentist. So she did a 1-year residency in Las Vegas. They loved that. Now she's in Missouri at Weidman. And so she owes the Air Force another 2.5 years, and then she's going to decide she wants to be a periodontist. So I'm happy about that. But she, is going to decide as she gets into it, will she do a residency through the Air Force, or will she get out and do it privately?
Yeah, so hopefully by the time she gets into practice, we will have some things that are a little different.
Some changes, because that's talking to all of her peers, when she was going through dental school, and their struggles about should they stay in Alabama or not stay in Alabama. I mean, I love the state of Alabama, but we have some real problems here. There's got to be some change. And the dental students every year, we're finding that less and less of them want to stay in Alabama, or that's actually probably really not true. It's really probably that they can't stay in Alabama, but less of them are applying for dental licenses every year. And that's disappointing because we've had a really strong history of Alabama students staying in the state.
So let's dive into that. I've got some other stuff we can cover later, but let's talk about that. I know you and I have talked extensively about the labor shortage, and it's not just limited to staff. It extends to doctors. And so knowing that the reimbursement issue with the insurance companies is the problem, and why doctors are not staying here, and why the school doesn't have as many Alabama kids going to the dental school. It's a function of economics, and it all runs downhill. So, how are we going to get this fixed?
So I think, I've I think we've talked about that I was chair of Council on Government Affairs for the ADA, and served on CGA, Council on Government Affairs, for 4 years. And what we know nationally, and this is what I love about being in organized dentistry and ADA and Alabama Dental Association, is that you have to tackle these things a lot of times legislatively, because really they can change our lives. Somebody who's not even a dentist can change our lives overnight. So by looking at how do we address this, and the ADA has given well over $19 million to states to help fight for advocacy and dental insurance reform to each state. We've gotten Alabama in the last 2 or 3 years, not very long at all. We've applied for and gotten 200,000 to 300,000, maybe a little tick above that too, to help us with dental insurance reform. I mean, we've gotten things already passed that are virtual credit cards. Yeah, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit, but virtual credit cards are something that's been kind of pushed on us. You get it, you don't realize that there's a fee associated with it. You think that's the only way that you can get paid. And it turns out that's not the case. And in fact, this week, ADA helped get through INQUIL, which is a national coalition of legislators about insurance. And they got through INQUIL passed that they are advocating that you have to opt in to the virtual credit cards instead of having to opt out, which costs a lot of money. For things like, what we've been working on in the last 2 years, and just dropped a bill about medical loss ratio. What we would like is that 85% of premiums that patients pay for their dental insurance should go for dentistry and not to line the pockets of the administrators. We have a national momentum going now that's really kind of building from all corners of society. I mean, you have patients, you have providers, you have policymakers alike who are really fed up with the practices of the insurance companies. And so by tackling it legislatively, it may not seem, that it may seem like it's slow and a little tortoise-like, but we've nationally gotten well over 300 bills passed nationally that have chipped away at these bad practices that allowed insurance companies to do what they do. And so I know it's an indirect way of answering your question, but we can get at this because if the insurance companies have to be transparent with the way that they're spending that 85%, they would have to acknowledge, they would have to show, and it can't just be the way they want to report it. It would be according to the way that we determine that it should be reported, not calling things administrative costs that aren't administrative
Yeah, like
costs.
computers and fax machines and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, or a new program that, software that they say is beneficial. That's an administrative cost, and those need to be parsed out from what's actually going for dentistry. And, if you look at in some states, that has changed reimbursements, and that's not why we're doing this. We're doing this. That's just a potential side effect of doing this. But, we're doing this so that patients get money spent on them instead of in the pockets of administrators. And that goes back to, I want to say too, Ron, I'm just going to throw in there that this is a problem across the board in Alabama. It's not just dentistry. It's why you can't get an appointment with a neurologist. It's why you can't I tried to get an appointment with a cardiologist. It's going to be over a year, because there's not enough providers. And it's all the same reason that people don't want to stay and healthcare workers don't want to stay in Alabama. And it's a shame and it's got to change. But that's going to take us really banding together and going to our legislators because the legislators are the ones who make the laws that help us to have good insurance practices.
So walk me through, talk to me as if I were a golden retriever, because most of our brethren really don't understand what you guys are fighting for in Montgomery, A, and B, they don't really understand MLR. Explain to a child about MLR because I have a feeling that almost very few of the doctors I know will understand it.
Yeah. Okay. So MLR means medical loss ratio, and we also call it dental loss ratio. DLR is really what it is. But medical loss ratio means what percent of the money that a person that you and I pay for our medical premiums or that our patients pay for their dental premiums, what percent actually goes towards the medicine that is provided for you or the dentistry that's provided for our patients and what goes towards administrative costs. And if you just go by ACA, it's well over 85%. In fact, it's 87%. And I think that there was an article, Yellowhammer, that Blue Cross said that they wanted that this is what they were providing, and it was well above 85% for MLR. So they shouldn't be upset about this
Sure.
as, 85% because it's not 87%, so we're only asking that 85% of the premiums be, but I think when all's said and done and we find out about the transparency of what's actually being, we know nationally that administrative costs are out of this. They're astronomical. In some areas, it could be 50%. Only 50% of premiums are going for dentistry instead of, in their pocket. So that's what we want to know. We want good transparency, and it's by chipping away at things that are right and that are fair for our patients and for ourselves, really, also. If
So,
we fight for what's right in Alabama, we all should have good care as well.
so do we have any context? This is a generalization or a ballpark. Do we have any context as to what the insurance companies of Alabama have been paying relative to the standard of 83? We know it's
So
less.
there was well, no, we don't. Here's what we know. There was an article. I don't have that article, but I can certainly try to get a hold of that article and get it to you so that you can use it in one of your podcasts. But there was an article somewhere around 2013 that talked about what the administrators were making in our state, and it has since then not been published. Those are all towards transparency that we need to get to the bottom of, and ensure that we're showing patients that, how their premium dollars are really being used and direct it towards care and recording, require reporting of their loss ratio to Alabama Department of Insurance.
So let's hypothetically walk through this for a second. Let's pretend that in a dream world that insurance companies have been paying, let's say, 50%. And let's assume that we are able to negotiate and get the MLR or DLR up to 83. How would a doctor in Alabama see that benefit? How will they notice it?
If it's 85, 83, 85%, it will ultimately be up to the insurance company to decide how they're going to meet that. But let's say they were at 50%. Well, if they're required to, and part of the bill is that if there's money that's left on the table of that percent, then they would have to reimburse patients as a whole back some of the premiums.
Ah,
They're not going to want to do that.
which gives
So
patients more discretionary money to spend for their health care.
that we could do that. They could do it that way. I mean, they can choose to do it however they want. If it means that they have to spend more money on dentistry by either covering more things or raising the reimbursement rates or refunding patients, that would be their choice. But somehow they would have to get that the amount of money that's spent towards dentistry from 50% to 85%.
So those of us in the trenches, we would see that potentially as perhaps more spend by the dental consumer.
Could be. Again, the bill would not dictate how the insurance companies would have to come up with the 85%, but if they don't, then the bill would require reimbursements of premium dollars.
Okay. What other legislation have you guys been working on? I know
So,
there was some discussion about rollover at some point.
yeah, we did that last year. I think for right now, that's been tabled. Um, but the other things we're now looking at network leasing. So, it can be that an insurance company comes in and they lease out your contract with them, the network. And then all of a sudden you find that the what you signed up for isn't the same company and that's been leased out. So we're looking at as that is starting to come into Alabama, and also through the ADA networking the different states and what's working in other states, what they're finding as problems, how the bills have been worded. Again, that's our membership dollars coming together. Um, Retroactive, when a company comes and says, "Hey, we paid you 20 years ago, $5 or $100 or $1,000 too much. We want that back." That has been passed in Alabama already that they can't do that. Retroactive denials. Another one in the state, I'm thinking right off the top of my head, there's 2 or 3 that we have that are really good. Virtual credit cards, retroactive denials, and, we're thinking about network leasing in the future. So, as things come up, that's why staying together is gonna help us fight these things.
So, just for the entire 7 people who may listen to this, is the rollover, uh, is the rollover potentially passable, or is it
That
dead?
really got pretty shut down pretty quickly. As we kinda dived into it, we were hoping that, and basically for people that are listening, that if you have money that's left on the table, then if it's not used, you've paid for that. To have that roll over, even if it's 50% of it gets rolled over for a year. So it's not that we're giving up on it, but I think this year we're focused heavily on the MLR because that looked the most promising for right now. So, we'll continue to look at the other. But, I know this, I'm speaking as just myself as a periodontist, we've had several Medicare Advantage patients call and say that they've gotten letters in the mail that instead of $1,000 maximum amount that they're able to spend, it's just been reduced to in the 600s. Same premiums, same.
You know,
It's
as I go around the country and talk to people meet people and interview them too, you know, there are multiple insurance companies that are problematic, but as we know, Alabama is a very unique state because we have monopolies of some status here, and they control market share to a point where it's very difficult for competition. It would be great if President Trump was able to erase state lines and get us competitive numbers from, me as an employer. If I could, get, I don't know, however many people we have that, on insurance, I don't know, 100 or something, whatever it is, to get them Blue Cross of Illinois or Tennessee or Georgia or whatever it is. But we are forced to buy Blue Cross of Alabama.
Yeah,
And
it's
so,
it's considered a health service organization that got passed in the 1950s. I think it was related to the teachers, and and then once that got passed, then it means that when we write bills, we have to write them in a way that it includes health service organizations or anyone that, so that they have to abide by those rules as well. But you're right, it's it's not illegal to be a monopoly,
no.
and that's where I agree with you that there has to be competition is healthy.
Yes.
It's healthy for everyone.
The rest of the world functions with competition.
Yeah. Yes. So it's and I see it as a little bit of a no, a lot of a David and Goliath situation. We're not allowed to discuss things collectively, and yet we've got this monopoly that just has their thumb on us. And but that's again where we have to go to our legislators because that's where it's being allowed, right? Because they're the ones that pass bills. So the one thing that our legislators fear more than some companies that are huge in Alabama, there's not just one, but fear those companies is their constituents. And we're their constituents, and our patients are their constituents. And Ron, you know that we have more access to those patients, and we have the ability to have them explain to their legislators why they don't think this is right either and why they're being taken advantage of. And, that's where us doing this collectively, we got hundreds of emails last year sent to legislators. When I spoke at the and I do want to throw out that this January 28th, we are having a More for Your Smile Day. So dentist and dental student advocacy day, and there's going to be a live press conference, and we're going to be at the State House. So I would encourage anyone to get on the Alda News. There was a Alda Connection that you can sign up, register now, go with us. Because last year when I spoke to our legislators during one of the committee meetings, I said, I know you've gotten emails, and they were all shaking their heads. You know, they even asked us to start calling off the dogs.
Yeah, they called me personally.
Yeah. And we did that with 10% of the dentists being involved. Can you imagine what we could get done if 80% of the dentists were involved? And we got our patients emailing. So we have all the toolkits for this. Alabama Dental Association. So we have cards that have QR codes on it that your patient right there at your front desk can send an email to their legislator by just putting in their address. They were being flooded by it, by calling, by finding out what your patient's legislator is. There's at the bottom of that Alda Connection is a link to legislation so that you can find out who your legislator is. And if they're on committees that matter, like this insurance committee, if they're on those committees and they're your legislator, you need to be calling them. You need to be getting your patients to call them. Because they are hearing it and they know that there's a lot of pressure and it's mounting nationally and now statewide to change what's going on, change our situation. The students are doing an awesome job of helping to explain why they possibly can't even stay in the state.
I had the conversation with one of our legislators, and I won't say his name, but I told him back whenever it was last year when the More for Your Smile campaign was going on. I told him, I said, the door has been cracked open and it's not going to shut anymore. So there's too much momentum that's going to continue to build. And the problem, Lee, is that, and I've said this before, and I know it probably drew some ire in some corners or circles. I didn't mean for it to, but this is the kind of thing that we need to let everybody in Alabama know about in the dental community that we're doing, that you guys are fighting. You and Michelle are fighting all the time for this. We need to let everybody know that there's a committee formed. There's people who are trying to engage on this because I can tell you that if I get on my horse and I go out to the remote outposts of Alabama and to the dental offices of Alabama and the backwaters, they're gonna tell you they have no understanding of any of this. They're gonna tell you they don't know what is being done on our behalf. They're then gonna further tell you they don't even know what ALDA does. And so this is the kind of stuff that we have to get out, which leads me back to segue to what we were talking about earlier. Let's talk about the access to care again real quick. You know, I don't have the data in front of me, but I know you and I have spoken about this. I don't know the exact numbers, but we go to the school every year and recruit. And we have jobs typically all over the state that we offer, great locations, great practices. But every year, the number of kids who stay in Alabama is getting less and less and less. Now, it has changed. I know we were up there a few months ago at the school, and there were surprisingly more kids in the junior class that are staying. More of a function of NICO allowing more kids in the class, right? Because when you and I were in school, we only had 45 to 50 kids in a class, right? We had
Mhm.
90 chairs on the third floor, second floor for all the kids. Well, now, there's over 100 kids a class, right? And so I don't know the exact numbers, but due to economics, they've had to get more money in the door. And the access to care problem has always been a fundamental issue with me because the average age of the doctor in Alabama is going the wrong way. And I can't tell you how many people call us every year and ask us to buy their practice at retirement age, and we cannot buy them because I have no succession plan for someone in Andalusia or Wetumpka or Roanoke or Wedowee or, I mean, pick a town, just pick one.
Mhm.
Selma, heck, Montgomery, Mobile. We can't get people to go to these places, young people to go to these places and practice. And so these doctors, I mean, I've had them cry on the phone with me. I mean, you name it. And they're like, please, can you buy, this is part of my retirement. I can't sell my practice. And I say, I get it. I totally understand it, but I can't help you. I can't buy it either because I can't find anybody to go in there. And, that's one of the things we do is we pick up the tab so that the young person can come in at a lower threshold of barrier entry to get a job, right? But
Mhm.
until we can fix the access to care problem, A, and then B, there's a perception right now, and I shouldn't say every, the overwhelming majority of new graduates want to stay in and around Birmingham. That's the other problem that we have right now. So many of the kids want to stay in and around Birmingham. And so you take a city like Huntsville, Huntsville is booming by every estimation I've been told. The FBI is going up there. I know the Redstone Arsenal's doing great, but we can't find anybody to go to Huntsville. And I'm sure at some point the numbers will flip, but we've got to find ways to entice young people to go to places other than here in Birmingham. Now, I say that hypocritically. You and I both practice 2 miles from each other in Vestavia and Homewood, but we need to find ways to get people who are motivated to go to these other towns because we're going to have an even worse access to care problem in all of these towns. When I would go to Prattville last year or 2 years ago and practice in our location, almost every single person we had that needed a root canal had to drive to Birmingham or needed an extraction had to drive to Birmingham. They couldn't get an appointment with the folks that were down there because they're booked up. And there's only,
Mhm.
2 guys for, like, 7 counties or some crazy number? I mean, the access to care problem is getting worse and worse and worse, and trying to motivate young people to come into Alabama, whether they are educated here or not, and then go anywhere other than Birmingham or the metro area is incredibly difficult. I know that there's been scholarships created. I know Blue Cross, has done something for, rural Alabama, and I think that's great.
Well, ALDA has the Alabama Foundation. Yeah, so we give several. But the problem with the scholarships is that you may get somebody who stays for as long as the payout, right? And then where are they going? They're going to leave. So that's a very temporary fix for the most part. And then you also have, I've had dentists in rural areas that call me and say, I have no staff.
That's the other problem.
I have no staff. And one of them called and said, I missed the equivalent of 2 months last year of work because I didn't have enough staff to help me. Well, again, when you're talking about that hygienists can go to, I lost two of my hygienists. One cried and she said, I don't want to leave and go, but I can make, double in Tennessee and I can't turn that down. And the other one went to Georgia for exactly the same reason. Well, when you can't pay a hygienist more than what you're getting reimbursed, you just can't do it.
Well, the economics are squeezing everybody right now, and nobody really understands it. When the tariffs, everything that came out with Trump and the tariffs, it left all this uncertainty with, we're going to have tariffs, we're not going to have tariffs, we're going to slap them on this country, not on this country. It left all this uncertainty, and the market has been so topsy-turvy the last 4 years with interest rates, and now they're finally starting to come down a little bit. But you look at all that uncertainty. We don't like economic uncertainty. None of us do. And when you look at the fact that our reimbursements, as bad as they are, and we'll get to that in a second, our reimbursements, as bad as they are, can't compare with any other neighboring state, not even in the ballpark. And then you look at the wages that you're referencing. You're talking about hygienists, assistants, front deskers. they can go and make much, much more money living in a state where the standard of living or cost of living is not that much higher. I mean, the cost of living in Georgia or Mississippi or Tennessee is not that much higher than Alabama. I would venture to say Mississippi may be equal or lower, but they can make a lot more money.
Hmm.
And so you start thinking, well, how in the world am I going to afford this? You get a girl coming out of one of the programs or the ADHP, and they come out and they're asking for X number of dollars, which, 5 years ago, you and I would have laughed at. But now there are people that are paying it because they're being held hostage and they have to pay it, or else they had lost 2 months of revenue. So it's becoming an economic problem too, because the lack access to care, access to a doctor, access to staff, access to being able to afford to pay staff and retain staff. I mean, we try to lean on culture and we try to lean on all the things that would make a staff member want to stay with us. But at some point, you have to have competitive wages to get competitive people, right?
Absolutely.
And so we're reaching a point of economic meltdown because we are controlled by third-party payers who are keeping the cost of what we're able to earn at such a low rate that it is now we were able to float by for years and years and years. But this whole model is not inflation-proof, Lee. It's not.
Yeah. So, Ron, think about it. If you were an insurance company and you have, let's say cardiology, and you can't, patients can't get into a cardiologist for a year, and you have people that are, so less and less people are going to the cardiologist. So they're paying the same premiums. You have the same amount of people paying the same premiums, but you have less cardiology that you're having to pay for if you're an insurance company because you can't get in to see people. I mean, there's zero that's motivational for them to have more people in the state. So going and saying, that's why, again, it takes us going to the legislators and saying, you've got to change this. We voted you in. Now you've got to change this because there's zero motivation for the dentist. The other thing that I just wanted to throw out that, anybody that hopefully is listening to this in the future who's a dentist and you have a friend who's a legislator or you have a patient that's a legislator, if it's a patient that's a legislator or if it's a friend, show them around your practice and show them that it's basically a mini hospital. You could be a physician and have a little chair or a table, and that's might be your overhead for an internist or a family care place. But for us, we have to have, a lot more equipment. Our chairs are very expensive. Show them that. They need to see what it takes. They need to hear how long did it take you to become a dentist? And if you're a specialist, how long did it take you to become a specialist? They don't know these things. And that's some of the things that we're thinking about working on is to have teaching workshops to tell legislators and help them like a little tooth. We could have a little tooth college, teach them what it takes for us to become. But we've got to know if you're a legislative contact, if you have a legislative contact, so that again, we can push alerts to you. You can go to your friend, you can go to your patient and say, this is important. We used to have a very good network, and now we've kind of lost that over time. So we're working on building that back up. But that's what it's going to take, Ron, is that we have got our legislators have to agree that there has to be a change in this state
Yeah,
because there's zero motive for the insurance companies to change.
the discussion point, the narrative that I've had discussions before have been I've had good discussions with legislators, I've had bad discussions with legislators, and the bad ones typically center around, well, every doctor has a country club membership, a lake house, and a beach house. Well, that's a function of supply and demand in Alabama. That's got nothing to do with nothing. I mean, that's got nothing to do with anything that we're talking about because the fewer of whatever you have of highly skilled labor, you're going to do well. But comparing us, all we want, in my opinion, all I want is I want us to be competitive with Mississippi and
Yeah.
Tennessee, okay? I just want us to be in the same zip code as those surrounding states because we cannot get people look, every great business in the world, I don't care what you do, is gonna boil down to one thing at some point, and that's a recruiting problem. You have to recruit people. I don't care if you're selling lollipops, ice cream, or you're a dentist. You have to find people. You have to recruit. Well, if you can't get people to stay in Alabama because the wages are less, and, oh, by the way, a dentist can make a significant factor higher working in Jackson, Mississippi, or Columbus, Georgia. At some point, if I had a child that went to dental school, I don't think mine will, but if I did, I would tell them, you know what? Live in Auburn and practice in Columbus, Georgia. Live in Tuscaloosa and practice over the Mississippi line. Make a whole lot more money. Retire 15 years sooner. But until we fix that problem, the reimbursement problem is the white whale. That is the problem that fixes all of the other problems when it comes to these things. And that leads me to a few other things I want to talk to you about. So, in terms of the school, do you think we will get to the point where we will start getting more Alabama kids back in the dental school?
I think that is a good Nico Gers and a good
I hope to get
question.
Nico on here.
Yeah, and a good question to ask him, but also to ask. I know that um they were looking at a special program to help get people from rural areas to go into dentistry, and there does need to be kind of a grassroots movement there with getting people interested in dentistry in rural areas that would want to go back and practice. But again, the dental school's in Birmingham. So they live in Birmingham for 4 years or more if they're specialists, and then they start looking around Birmingham. We're back to the same problem.
Oh, same
So
problem.
I think that's a good Michelle uh, Hubner is our executive director for Alabama Dental Association, and then Nico is the dean of the dental school right now, and that's a great question for them.
Well, you remember the genesis of so much of this began years ago when I learned this at the state dental meeting last summer. So much of this pendulum had swung back, beginning, I don't remember the year, so don't hold me to it, but years and years and years ago, we started limiting the number of kids coming into the dental school classes because we did not want to overburden the state with supply. Well, okay, this is the unintended consequence of half a century of doing that, right?
There was also that when the state money went down, meaning that what students were being supported in, and that the school had to start looking at other avenues. And one of the avenues that one of the deans chose was more out of state and out of the country students because the amount of money that they bring to the school is so much higher than an in-state person.
Sure. I mean, that's what's been happening is we've been letting in out-of-state kids and out-of-country kids, and it's a function of economics. It all boils down to money at some point. When you can't get enough revenue in the dental school to cover the cost that I'm sure Nico has a budget, he can't cover it, so let's go get some kids who'll pay double tuition, right?
And then let's double the amount. And was not a Nico decision about, doubling the amount of students that were coming in. But here we are. So,
I mean, you
then
gotta do something, right?
that affects logistics for them.
I mean, you're talking about the trickle-down economic effect of the reimbursement problem has so many tentacles that affect it. I mean, you start distributing more capital into the hands of all the healthcare providers in Alabama, you begin to think about reopening the four-year dental hygiene program, the Bachelor's of Science. You begin thinking about doing all sorts of things where you have access to, I mean, heck, Heck, we as providers have more discretionary money that we can distribute to the school. I know when they come and ask me for donations, I love my alma mater, but, if I was making the money that I would make in Jackson, Mississippi, I would have more to give to the school, just being frank with you.
When legislators throw out, "Well, I don't know any dentists that," my answer to that is generally, "Well, I don't know that many dentists at all that have multi-million-dollar mansions at the beach, at the lake, and at their home." So, and less, there are more dentists that are struggling. So don't compare us to administrators because that's not the case, at all. So if you want to talk about greedy, it's not the dentist.
We know we're greed centers around politics. So I got some fun questions for you. All
Okay.
right, you ready?
Shoot.
This
I
is
don't
a
know yet.
this is a game that honestly I stole from a friend of mine, or not a friend of mine, but a guy that I listen to a lot. So it's called What's More Likely. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right. What's more likely? The reimbursements in Alabama will match all neighboring states first, or Trump will make it through his term.
Yeah, the first one's not going to happen anytime soon.
So you think Trump will make it through the duration of his term before we get the reimbursements
100%.
up?
100%.
That's not encouraging. All right. Number 2, the Bachelor of Science dental hygiene program restarts first, or the ADHP extends its curriculum to beyond 10 Saturdays.
Oh, neither.
That's not one of the options. There's no
Just
option
made it
C
one,
here.
Ron.
It's one or the other. That's why these questions are so thought out here.
Can I just throw out there that Our I will tell you that other states now wanna know about
Sure.
our ADHP program
Yeah, because there's a
because
hygiene shortage.
there's a big hygiene shortage. So I came into the state from another state, from Virginia, right? And at first I was like, "What is this?" But I have to say, and I see a lot of, especially having had temp during this shortage, having had temporary hygienists that come in, and there's good boths.
Oh, yeah.
There's
It's good
really
and
good
bad both.
hygienists, and there's bad boths. That's exactly right. So I I think we should be proud of our ADHP program. Can anything be improved? Absolutely. Any program can be improved. But I do think that we should be very proud of our ADHP program. And it's not a preceptorship program.
Hopefully, it will extend beyond 10 deals. All right, number 3. What's more likely? New grads will choose to want to live anywhere in Alabama, or the trend continues and the few who do choose will want to stay in the Birmingham area.
I think that until there's significant change, they're not gonna choose to go to rural areas even if you have, temporary incentives. Look at the military, okay? They have that great scholarship program. My daughter was one that got one, and so that meant that they paid for a percent or all of their dental school. That is an amazing program. But having been on CGA, I can tell you that one of the problems with the military is long-term longevity of they have they max at like 12 years, and even then they have a lot that fall off after they pay back what they owe. And the military has a lot of great benefits that way excel what benefits Alabama has by staying here, right? So until we get creative or until there's a major change, you're not going to have healthcare workers in general staying in Alabama.
The labor shortage is such a critical problem, and I'm not even speaking about doctors now, I'm speaking about staff. It is such an issue. I mean, we are considering going down and recruiting from high schools. like literally recruiting and trying to train them, young people who may not want to go to college, don't have the ability, and trying to get them into a career that's not just a job. It might be something they might enjoy that where they're helping, their fellow man and they're contributing to society. But the labor shortage is such a problem. I can't tell how many people I get calls from every year. It's well over a dozen that ask me, "Hey, what are y'all doing for such and such in Birmingham for an assistant, a hygienist, a front desker? We can't find them in Gadsden or Anniston or wherever. I can't afford to pay somebody X." Because look, it is being felt everywhere. The last ADA numbers I saw, I think, were 80. It's over 80% of the doctors in the country were short still 1 to 2 staff members, I think is what I saw. So it's not just here, it's everywhere, but it is especially painful here because of the reimbursement and the wage problem. All right, number 4, what's more likely? The amount of scaling and root planing in Alabama will increase in general practice offices first, or more perio residents will set up practice in Alabama.
Sharon, you're killing me with these.
These are great. Look, these are questions you have to think about.
If patients are going to get what they need, and I think that every general dentistry office should be providing scaling and root planning.
I
I mean,
agree.
100%. That's the first line of defense. So I hope that's already being done.
We'll leave that alone.
Yeah.
All right, last one. What's more likely? You teaching me to ride a horse competently, or the dental school begins teaching emotional intelligence, EQ, social training courses.
Ron, how good of a rider are you?
I'm incompetent. I'm terrible. It
Hey,
would buck me. It
my
would
new
buck me.
favorite sport is trap shooting.
I know we're going to touch that in a
Yeah.
second, but I have no ability to ride a horse without him kicking me off, I assure you. So I brought this question up because it would be such a great curriculum, just one class, if we could teach dental students how to communicate, how to go in and meet a patient and discuss with them their needs and what's in their best interest, and talk to
Yes.
them confidently and competently about that without shrinking under the whole discussion of what we call wallet share, where, well, I'm afraid they may not can afford it, so I don't want to bring up all the things they need. And I know you don't experience this as much as we do because you're typically referral based, but all the young doctors that I have hired over the years, it takes them a long time to get to that point. I would be thrilled if we started teaching classes in the dental school about social intelligence, emotional intelligence, how to read a room, how to talk to people about, different things socially. Don't even bring up the dental piece till after you get to know them a little bit. You got to build
Yeah.
trust first before you
Yeah.
can ever discuss treatment planning, all that stuff. So
Then the different personality types and how they learn, how they hear, how they respond, how they receive news. I actually think that Nico Gers would really like that idea. And if you haven't pitched it, I would encourage you to do that
I'm
because
going to.
that is so up his alley. And you're exactly right because connecting with patients, because isn't our job is to give patients the information that they need to make whatever decision is good for them.
That's right.
And that's easy to do and to help them understand that doing nothing is a decision. And that's not really in their best interest.
Yeah,
So
I heard a great quote the other day, or a great comment from a hygienist. She's over a big hygiene group. She called it Weight Watchers, WAIT, Weight Watchers. We're going to wait and watch it get worse.
yeah, love that.
But I've heard skillful neglect. I've heard that term used before. But I would love to be able to pitch that idea to Nico, and I will when I get him on here. But a discussion point about walking in and knowing things to say to a patient to get them talking about themselves, to talk to them about, tell me about where you're from. How long you been coming here? I love those shoes. Where have you been? Where did you go recently that was fun? All that kind of stuff.
What motivated you to come here?
Yeah, well,
Because it's
exactly.
different for different people. Some people come because they're afraid of something. Some people come because of aesthetics. Some people come because it's their spouse that wants them to look different or to be different or to be healthy. It could be health, it could be looks. I mean, there's so many things, different things that motivate and to connect with what is it that this patient really wants?
Yeah, one of my things that makes me cringeworthy, is when I walk in and see one of our young doctors do an exam, and the first thing they walk in is they say, "Hello, I'm so and so. Are you having any problems today?" And I just go, "Oh my god!" Like, you literally have just built a brick wall for yourself, because the hygienist would probably have already told you if they had any problems, because the patient's been here an hour. Okay, they're probably going to tell you if they have an issue.
Uh-huh.
And now, with the patients, most of the time they're going to say, "What? No, I'm good. I'm pretty good. I don't have any
Yeah,
issues." Well,
I don't
now,
have any.
whatever you tell them about what things they need, you've got to go over the very hurdle you just created
Yes.
to get them to
Yes, and
understand.
periodontal disease is a big one because it's like heart disease. They don't necessarily feel it. And so they will say, I don't have any, if you said, well, but if you start after you get past that and you ask questions that help them to see, like, do your gums ever bleed? Well, if they do and they say, yeah, they always have, okay, well, I've already helped them and I don't even have to answer that, for them.
Absolutely.
So there are ways, and I think that's such a great idea for there to be a course and classes on, it's not just an ethics thing. You're absolutely right.
We call
It's,
it EQ, emotional intelligence. Yeah.
yeah, how do you connect with people and how do you help them help themselves? Yep.
All right. So, a few quick things here, and then we're going to wrap it up. All right. Give me 2 to 3 words that best describe you.
Oh my goodness. Wanting to be a sponge. I think that there are two different types of people. The people who always want to be a sponge, and so they reach their highest potential. And then the people who never want to admit that they don't know something, and they never reach their highest potential. So I hope that I'm a sponge.
So
So
you
that's
would,
number one.
yeah, like a constant learner.
I want to always learn,
I
and it
agree.
makes your life a lot more fun.
Absolutely.
And then, I hope in the end that I gave more than I took. That I gave back because I feel like, whether it's dentistry or whether it's, we fostered a child for a year, whether it's whatever it is that I've been given so many things. And for the, I'm so thankful for organized dentistry, for, other people that mentored me, that I hope that I leave here having done more than what I got, but I think that's always gonna be a work in progress.
Yeah, it's like I tell our residents every day or every chance I get to, I tell them, you know, the law of compensation is that the amount that you will earn in your life is directly proportional to the amount that you give to others. And I don't mean just giving monetarily, I mean of yourself, your service, your time, your effort, good deeds, whatever it is that you will earn, whatever it is based upon the amount of people you touch and the quality of of what you touch them with and how you help them. And I agree with you. I think being a constant learner is great. All right, if you could be one person else, who would it be?
Be one person else. I don't want to be somebody else. I wanna be the best. I mean, this is gonna sound hokey, and I don't want it
No,
to,
that's a great
but
answer.
I wanna be the best me that I can be.
Well, that's the ultimate quest in life, right? To be a better version of yourself.
Yeah, yeah, if I don't work really hard on this little bit of time I have here, I'm being best me and not being my neighbor. or not be, but there's a lot of people that I like to emulate. And let me say that Red Stevens is one, Zach Studstill is one, Michelle Huebner is one now also, but Linda Edgar was one of the recent past presidents, and boy, did she endure a lot of hardships during hers. But she used to be a marathon. I think she was even on the long list for the Olympics to be a marathon runner. I mean, you know, those people that really taught me a lot. I really want to emulate and hopefully make them proud. Even Jerry Dickerson that I bought the practice from. I said to him before he left, I hope that you were glad that you sold your practice to me. So there's a lot of people that I want to emulate.
So maybe you don't really want to be president then, right?
Of
Yeah, if you could be no, of the United States. I mean, one person you could be anybody.
No, I would
Okay.
not want to be president of the United
All right.
States. No.
So what's your biggest pet?
Let me say that I like to be behind the scenes making things happen, not the politician.
All right. All right. So what's your biggest pet peeve?
I think I have a lot of them.
All right. Give me one.
Ooh, I think my staff will probably tell you that there's a lot. I don't like okay, here's a pet peeve. When staff says to somebody, or when I go to the doctor and I hear, do this for me. Can you fill this out for me? Can you turn your head this way for me? They're not here for me. My patients, I'm here for them. So that is one big pet peeve I have is remember who is here for who. I once heard it was my priest that said, nurses, instead of them being there to take care of you, the patients are now there for them so that they can check off their list in the middle of the night and wake you up 5 times.
That's right.
Yeah. No, it's the other way around. And that's always stuck with me. So that is a big pet peeve is, hey, can you do this for me? And I'm there as a patient, or a patient is here and I'm here to take care of them. And somebody says, hey, can you turn your head for me? I know it's silly, but to
No, I
me,
mean, it's your pet peeve. You can have anything you like.
it's a basic principle.
All right. So a few more and then we'll wrap it up. Who would play you in a movie?
Okay. I'm so nerdy, Ron, that I don't even know people anymore. Like, I don't know the actors and
I mean, you
I
look,
could not look at a People magazine and tell you anybody that's in that
or you can pick
probably.
somebody from, our generation. You can pick, I don't know. I mean, Sally Field, Jane Fonda, Jane Seymour, Diane Keaton. You can pick
Okay,
anybody.
I think a little bit of Jane Fonda. I know she's a little controversial,
Okay.
but she's not afraid to step in there in the fray. Another pet peeve is accepting a role in something like organized dentistry, or when you're just there for in name only. Like, you just wanted the plaque, okay? That was not a Jane Fonda. And so I hope Jane Fonda would want to play me, which is I never am here. We gotta actually make a difference. If you're gonna sign up for something and do something, try to make a difference. You may not always be successful, but ruffle some feathers.
All right. So what is your favorite movie? Or name one of your favorite movies.
Oh, it's gonna be really schmaltzy, I'm sure. Love Actually is
Okay,
probably my
it's a
favorite.
good one. All right. One thing you do for yourself.
Oh, I love my hobbies.
Okay.
So, yeah, love my hobbies. I love trap shooting, I love dressage, and I love sewing.
All right.
And
What's your
there's not
most
enough time to do all 3.
outside of your family, because that's not a right answer, what is your most prized possession?
Outside of my family, I'm not a like, I don't like rings and jewelry and stuff like that.
Do you have some memorabilia? Do you have something you earned? Do you have something you were given that means a lot to you? A book, a plaque, a degree, a speech, something?
Yeah, you know, I'm glad I did the PhD. I would never do it again, but I'm glad that I did that because it taught me a lot about learning. So you can chase down a rabbit hole of knowing something. For me, it was cytokines and inflammatory periodontal disease, right? So, and then it turns out that that's a lot of COVID. But I went down this rabbit hole only to find out that you're never going to know all the answers. So I would have to say that I'm really happy. I say that with mixed because really glad that I did it and made it through it. Never want to do it again, but it did teach me the most about learning.
All right, couple more. What music will I find in your car?
You'd find a little symphony, you find country music.
Okay.
So really my three kind of channels are country music, symphony. I love when I've gotta, when like social media, I quit doing social media for the most part, almost
Yeah, I
100%.
don't even know how to get on it.
It's just it's it's depressing and it causes anxiety. That's when I go to the turn on symphonies and orchestra just for a few days. Then I get tired of that too, and I'm back to some country
I'm
music.
impressed. I gotta be honest, I'm impressed. All right, so, last couple things. Uh, Most recent books you've read that you enjoyed?
Okay, I read this really funny book last year, and it's called The Attic or Husbands in the Attic. I think it's just called The Attic. And so these this woman is a single woman, and she suddenly realizes that a husband would come down from her attic. And they would think that they had been married for however long. And so if she didn't, so it was really interesting about the dilemma of if you don't like the guy, how do you get him to go back up in the attic? Because then another one would come down. Or if you liked him, how do you get him to stay? And then what she learned about herself, because each husband would, her apartment would all of a sudden look the way that it was with those two people. So it was different version. And then all of her relationships with her neighbors, her family changed because of this husband. So all of a sudden she's having different conversations that she maybe wasn't having. And what did she really stand up for and what didn't she? And in the end, how did she solve? Like, how do I make this stop or do I keep going? Super interesting. And it was actually made you think a lot about life and your own relationships.
That's I've never heard of that book, but it's fascinating. Last couple things. Most interesting place you've been in the last 5 years?
Okay, so I should go on a lot more vacations than I do. The meetings end up eating up a fair amount of time. But I did my husband and I took two of our kids almost 2 years ago on a Mediterranean cruise. Went out of Barcelona. I always wanted to I read a book. My father-in-law had actually given me a book a long time ago, A Year in Provence. So always wanted to go. It's a pretty well-known book. Um, we always wanted to go to Provence. We went there. I bought a copy of the book for each one, the four of us when we went. So we read it on our way. You can read it in the airplane on the way over there. We read it. It made a difference in the going to Provence. And then we had 4 or 5 other stops. And just getting to travel with my kids now that they're in their 20s and they're getting married. 2 of my 4 kids are married. One's gonna get married this next April. Getting to share that with them and go, tour and then come back and eat together. And then they did their thing and we did ours, and we always ended up together even at the end of the evening. We would run into each other and end up sitting down and talking some more. So what a cool thing to get to do with your kids as they get older.
That's an incredible thing. I mean, anything like that that builds experiences, it builds memories is worth every bit
Mhm.
of it. Well, thank you, Leigh, for spending an hour with me, and hopefully we will get more than 10 people to listen to it.
Yeah. But Ron, I want to thank you for you really working on, there's different avenues to, beat Goliath. And I really appreciate your avenue and what you're trying to do, and I will do anything I can to help you be successful with this. So I thank you.
Well, I'm known regrettably as the disruptor, but I don't know the other way. So,
All right, hey, ruffle feathers.
yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Leigh, and thanks for being our first guest.
All right, hey, thanks,
All
Ron.
right.
That was
See you.
fun.
Bye bye.
Okay, bye.